a B2B consultant doing good work, but still relying on referrals, content grind, and manual follow-up, this masterclass is for you. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through the book-to-call system, a simple base system that turns your expertise into book sales calls automatically. You'll see the entire system from end to end, how authority replaces pitching, how ShortBook pre-sells your offer, the funnel that turns readers into buyers, the automation layer that does the follow-up, and why this works even if you hate content or sales. This isn't theory. This system is used by consultants doing $20,000 to $50,000 per month who want leverage, not more effort. And if you're thinking, I don't want to be a marketer, good. This was built for operators. All right, let's start. All right, we go to module 1, the consultant bottleneck. You see, most consultants don't have a lead problem, they have a leverage problem. And this is why most consultants plateau, always relying on referrals and always explaining over and over again in one giant cycle. Again, to remind you, the revenue is always tied to referrals, personal injury, and explaining the same thing over and over. Which means your income is always capped by how social you are, how valuable you are, and how much repetition you can tolerate. Again, let me remind you, this is not a business, guys. That's a performance. You're gonna be stuck being a dancing monkey to make money until you burn out. Yeah, so if your pipeline dries up the moment you stop talking to people, you don't own acquisition. You own a very expensive habit disguised as a relation-based business. Always find events, coffee chats, and just checking in messages. Gonna be like this, no, until you burn out. Because none of that is leverage, it's just motion without infrastructure. And the worst part of doing all this, it feels productive until you guys are trying to scale it. Here's the thing, guys, publishers don't have to explain the same idea 100 times. All they do is publish once and let the assets do all the work. And here's the truth, guys, consultants plateau because all you guys are still acting like freelancers with a bunch of calendars instead of owners with the authority infrastructure. Because look, I'm gonna be real, you guys, the first bottleneck you guys have to remove is all of this manual explanation. Until your expertise exists outside of this calendar, you guys don't have leverage, you just have availability. Alright, and let me show you what leverage risk actually looks like, guys. This is an AI consultant that was doing $35,000 a month with 3 referral partners. One partner goes quiet and revenue drops in 60 days by 40%. See? No marketing crash, no skill issue, no algorithm update, just one human stops sending referrals. That's not a marketing problem, that's a structural weakness. Because look, think about this. If one person can impact your revenue that much, you guys don't have a business model. You guys have a concentration risk. And then here's a comfortable part you have to know. You can't scale fragility. You can only hope it doesn't break. And you see, most consultants don't plateau because they're bad. They plateau because their revenue is built on relations instead of infrastructure. And relationships are a variable while systems aren't. Because high-level operators don't tolerate revenue dependency, guys. They don't build business that rely on your mood, your relationship, your timing, your favors. That's not premium positioning, guys. That's borrowed stability. And borrowed stability always expires. So your acquisition depends on someone liking you, someone remembering you, or someone referring you, then you're not in control. You're adjacent to control. And high-ticket consulting requires certainty, and certainty requires ownership of the pipeline. Yeah, so that's the main reason why we install assets that educate, align, attract, and convert. Without asking permission, without waiting, or without any coffee meeting. So let me remind you, if your revenue can drop 40% because one partner goes quiet, you don't need referrals, you need an infrastructure. Alright, and we step into module 2, the authority as infrastructure. And let's talk about authority, not popularity, guys. Authority isn't followers, and authority isn't posting daily. So guys, you guys can't be looks maxing or authority maxing like this guy just to be popular and cool. Because this is real authority. Authority is when prospects develop your framing before the call. So you're gonna be like this guy, having a bunch of leads and prospects hot and ready, and they're ready to buy on the dotted line. Again, let me remind you, authority is when someone already agrees with you before the call even starts. They don't show up asking if you can help, they show up asking, how does this work? You see, most consultants, they confuse visibility with authority. Again, let me remind you, visibility gets attention, but authority gets the decisions. Because right here, this is what gets decisions to close the deals, and this just gets visible and just clout with no money coming in line. Because you could have 50,000 followers all day and still get price shopped on every call. And why? Because nothing in your ecosystem tells how the buyer how to think. Because publishers don't rely on persuasion, guys. They control the frame all day. Like your boy Professor X here from the X-Men. You're gonna be controlling them, controlling the frame, and they're gonna accept the reality that you're gonna give them. And let's look what a publisher installs. It installs problem definition, the cost of an action, the method, and the decision path. And it all happens before the buyer ever meets them. Because high-level operators, they don't convince, guys. They're always pre-framing. Pre-framing, pre-sell, and pre-qualify. Bam. Because they all install assets that explain what matters, what doesn't, and why their approach is different. And the best part, they only have to do it once and let it work forever. Because look, if your call requires heavy explaining, having long decks, let me walk you through this, and your authority is missing the upstream, your sales is paying a tax all the time. And this is one of the most important things, guys. Authority turns sales calls into confirmations and not conversations. Because when authority is the infrastructure, selling becomes the placement and not persuasion. And this is what makes it easy, guys. And let's talk about what most calls look like. You get on Zoom, First 15 minutes, you explain what you do, how it works, why it's different, and why it's worth the price. And the prospects evaluate you in real time, and you can feel it, guys. Like they're skeptical, they're neutral, and they're gathering information while you're pitching. And while the close rate is around like 10 to 20%. And this is why all the sales call feel heavy, guys, because you guys are trying to build trust from 0 in 45 minutes. You're compressing authority, differentiation, pricing, justification, and risk removal all into one conversation. That's not leverage, that's pressure, and pressure converts really poorly. Here's the thing about high ticket calls. It should not be education sessions. If you're explaining your framework, defending your pricing, differentiating yourself live, you are now negotiating from weakness. Pre-positioning requires alignment before the call, not during it. So when you're teaching on the call, you're not diagnosing, you're auditioning. And let that sink in. Now let's look on the other side. Prospect read your book, they already understand your methodology, who's it for, why it works, why it's premium, and the call opens with, hey, I read your book. This feels exactly what I need. How do we start? See, do you guys notice the shift? You're not selling, you're confirming. So the close rate would be around 40 to 60%. So guys, when the frame is installed before the call becomes logistical. You're not convincing, you're clarifying the timeline, the scope, and the fit. And that's leverage. So here's the thing. This is how high ticket consulting is supposed to feel, guys. You open with, based on what you read, here's where you see the gap. That's placement and that's authority. And that's why the close rate is double, guys. Not because you got better at persuasion, but because you removed the persuasion from the equation. Again, publishers don't rely on charisma, guys. They rely on pre-installed belief. They don't need to enter any neutral rooms. They entered aligned ones. So that's why authority turns sales calls into confirmations. And confirmation calls close a lot better every single time. And then we move to module 3, the book to call asset. And here we start with the authority asset, which is the authority book. Like the examples of the core asset of the authority book, like we got the .com Toolkits, the Alex Hormozi books, and I have my book over here, Effortless Growth. Again, it's not a bestseller, it's not a passion project, it's not something that hopes to go viral. This is a precision asset. So this precision asset is built to reframe the problem, introduce your method, and position your offer as the next logical next step. Nothing extra and nothing fluffy. And here's the thing about assets versus content. Most coaches are just creating content when they should be creating assets. Because content expires and assets compound. And this is the difference between attention and authority. Because a post gets scrolled past, but a book, it gets consumed. So once you have an authority book, everyone's consumed this, you're gonna position authority as a trusted advisor. Because publishers don't chase interest, they package conviction. Like your boy Tony Robbins here, always live with conviction. Because look, the book isn't designed to impress strangers, it's designed to align buyers. Because I'd rather have hundreds of these buyers versus having cheapskates all day. Because look, if someone reads it and does the book a call, good. The book still did its job. Because authority assets aren't about persuasion, guys, they're about removing doubt. Because it turns to, what happens if I don't do this? That's inevitable, guys. And that is why sales calls work better after the book. Because you're no longer educating, you're no longer pitching, and you're no longer convincing. And instead, you're diagnosing. So the call becomes, based on what you read, here's where this fits for you. That is high ticket selling done properly. Then you're gonna be like, Fry from Futurata, shut up and take my money.
Shut up and take my money.
So this is leverage. So one asset replaces all the long decks, it reduces explanations, endless day ends, and the whole let me explain how this worked thing. All you have to do is explain once and the system explains forever. Bam, bam, money, bang, and bang. Happy face. So the book doesn't sell the service, guys, it sells the decision. And once the decision made, the call is just a placement. Alright guys, I'm gonna show you a quick example of authority books. This is not a bestseller, this is not a passion project, and this is not something you write because you wanted to. This is what we call a precision asset. So having this authority asset, guys, it's designed to reframe the problem, introduce your method, pre-handle all objections, and position your offer as the obvious next step. Yeah, so I'm going to show you one right now. Here we have the cover. It's clean, branded, and professional. This alone shifts the perception. Like here's the thing, guys, most customers show up to a call with nothing but a Calendly link, and they wonder why they get all price shop. But when you show up with a structured asset, you're no longer a freelancer. You become an authority. And perception changes pricing power immediately all the time. See, I'm gonna go scroll this real fast, go to page 1 or chapter 1. See, the rise of micro, the death of fun, birth of trust. See, a reader will see this, will describe their problem right here. No pitch, no hype, and you're just gonna get more clarity. Because here's the thing, high level buyers don't want inspiration, guys. They want articulation. So when a prospect feels understood, authority increases instantly. So if your marketing doesn't articulate the problem better than they can, you guys are not controlling the sale. So look, here's a quick glance, the purpose of a micro offer. The micro offer is just a front porch to your empire. So what it does, pick one problem the client has, solve it faster than someone else, and package it in a format they consume under 1 hour. And then we can price it for 90 cents, 27, and then we can sell it every day. So this solves a pain point and a problem that you can use in the strategy for your offer. Yeah, so when the logic is clear, guys, selling becomes unnecessary. You see, most consultants try to create urgency, but urgency without clarity creates resistance, because clarity creates inavailability. Yeah guys, so by the time they reach this page, the call to action is aggressive. It simply say, if you want help building this book, go ahead and book a free one-on-one call with me on the link below. No tricks, no countdown timers, no emotional manipulation, just progression. So this is why calls feel different. The prospect's no longer asking, hey, what do you do? They're asking, how does this apply to me? See, that's placement and that's consultative control. And that's how premium consulting should feel. See guys, the book doesn't sell the service, it sells the decision. And once the decision is made, the call becomes a formality. So if you're still trying to close high ticket services with nothing but a landing page in this pitch deck, you guys are underarmed. Because what I have to tell you, infrastructure wins every single time. And remember, publishers don't rely on persuasion, they install assets that shape belief. Because once belief is shaped with all these books and stuff, sales becomes mechanical. Alright, we go to module 4, the book to call funnel. Alright, and it goes from authority, funnel, and then call. Because once the authority aspect exists, the funnel becomes almost boring, and that's the point, guys. So it goes from book, sales page, email, voice follow-up, and a call. So no tricks, no gimmicks, no clever hacks, just sequencing. Because the funnels, they don't create trust, they route it. Because here's the thing, if trust doesn't exist before the funnel just moves the confusion faster. And that's why most funnels feel like a pressure cooker. Too early, too cold, and too transactional. You want your funnel to avoid doing this. This is wrong, guys. Because you're trying to sell before the buyer's even oriented. Because the goal of this funnel is not to convince, guys, it's to remove uncertainty. Because by the time the call happens, the prospect already understand who is this for, why this works, and why it's premium. So the decision is no longer, should I trust you? It's, does this fit for me right now? That's an availability. And this is one of the main reasons why your calls should feel light. Because if your calls feel heavy, it's not a closing problem. It's an education timing problem. Like your sales calls shouldn't be a heavy box on your back. Because you're explaining things that should have been understood upstream. Because sales calls are not for teaching, they're for diagnosing and placing. Because look, if you're still walking them through on a Zoom call, your funnel's doing the wrong job. They should have felt aligned on the call, so they are looking up to you as the trusted advisor and savior. Because publishers don't use funnels to persuade, they use funnels to filter and align. Because the funnel isn't there to sell harder, it's there to make the right buyer say yes faster and the wrong buyer to opt out quietly and piecing out. Because if the call feels heavy, the asset upstream is weak. Fix the asset and the funnel becomes frictionless. And fix the framing and the call becomes a formality. So it gets rid of all the heavy calls, your weak asset, and the poor framing all gone. And quick pause, guys. How many times this month did you have to explain the same thing? And what will you change if the explanation happened before the call? If you want help installing your own book to call system, go ahead and book a free one-on-one call with me in the link below. No pitch and just clarity. And then we move to module 5, the automation layer. And then follow up without chasing. You see, most consultants lose deals after the call, not because of price, but because of silence. So you're gonna be frustrated and ghosted like this guy, and all your prospects are gonna be like this, sorry, I'm not interested, or they just will ghost you. So the call ends, momentum peaks, and then nothing in this gap is killing all your deals. Because silence is a decision killer. Because most consultants think that follow-up is just optional. It's not. Silence doesn't mean the prospect said no, guys. It just means you let uncertainty win. Because here's the thing, people don't move forward when they're unsure, guys. They're just gonna move on. And if your system just goes quiet, guys, you're just training them to forget you. And certainty requires presence, guys. High ticket buyers don't need pressure. They need reinforcement. Reinforcement of the problem, the cost of inaction, the logic of the method, and the availability of the outcome. And this whole thing doesn't happen in just one call, guys. And it happens through consistent authority signals delivered at the right time. That's not chasing, that's having 100% control. Again, let me remind you, follow-up is not sales. Follow-up isn't selling, it's placement over time. Because good follow-up doesn't just say, hey, just checking in. It says, here's the next piece you need to make the right decision. So if your follow-up feels really awkward, guys, it's because it's unstructured. Because systems don't feel awkward, only humans do. And now we go to automation done right. Here's the thing, automation is about spam. It's about staying present while doing nothing. Here the system sends the right message at the right moment without emotion and without hesitation. So this whole automation cycle for engagement becomes clean. So this results in you not chasing, but remaining visible. And visibility plus authority equals conversion. Bam, sell baby. Because publishers don't follow up randomly, guys, they sequence belief. So each message reinforces certainty, removes the friction, and narrows controls the decision until the timing catches up. So they become from follower to believer, because authority plus the follow-up equals conversion without all the pressure. Because when the automation carries the conversation forward, you don't have to sell harder. All you have to do is just wait calmly and while the system does its job. Again, let me remind you, once the authority asset exists, guys, the funnel becomes simple. From book, landing page, follow-up to call. No complexity and no hacks. And let me show you exactly what it looks like. Yeah, so this is what the prospect's gonna see. We got the headline, and then we got a cool VSL right here. All right, and then we keep scrolling, positioning, what the book is about. We have a visual of the book, and we just keep going, sliding. Yep, so there's no clutter. The only page is to get them to request the book, guys. And the price of a low ticket order is $7. And let me remind you guys, if your sales page has like 5 call to action, 3 videos, and 40 testimonials, you don't have confidence, that's anxiety. Because high ticket funnels don't need tricks, they just need clarity. And you don't want to confuse the prospects who don't convert. You want to align the ones that do. And this is where they land here once they buy the book. Once the book's delivered, that right here there will be a book to call button. Because right here, some book immediately because authority already did all the work. Yeah, so this is really critical, guys. We don't force the call. We make it available because high-level buyers move fast when they're certain. See what this thank you captures? It has high intent, fresh momentum, emotional alignment. See, you're not pushing, we're just placing. All right, once we click here, it's gonna go to a simple calendar. Like as you can tell, it goes to a calendar, and then we pick a time, and then have short qualification questions. See, this is gonna fill out all the tire kickers, because this isn't about volume, it's about fit. Remember, more calls is not the goal, guys. Having better calls is. So if your funnel optimizes for quantity, your calendar becomes heavy. But if you optimize for alignment, your close rate is going to increase because leverage over activity every single day. All right, once they opt in, they're going to go through a workflow sequence. Like for instance, they have the no-show. We have the one that has the book calendar. You're going to have SMS, send an email, and we have the post-call nurture flow. Once they book, now they're gonna see like more emails and case studies coming in before the call. And then the long-term reactivation, they're gonna get a new piece of proof, angles to bring them out without you even chasing. But the follow-up sequence, right here, 10 minutes, day 2, 4, case study. Yeah, so this will be a whole flow after they book the call and bought the book. So follow-up isn't begging, guys, it's reinforcement. So every email answers another objection, another doubt, and another friction point. So by the time they book, the decision feels safe. Yeah, so if your only follow-up is, hey, just checking in, you guys don't have a system. You just have memory. Remember, systems convert and humans always forget. So again, authority, funnel, call. So if calls feel heavy, guys, the asset upstream's weak. And now that you guys see the upstream, now you know it's gonna land. And I'm gonna recap the whole book to call system. So let's zoom out. This entire system exists for one reason, to remove manual explanation from your business. So we removed all the manual explanation, we installed the authority infrastructure, we use a short authority book to pre-sell, and funnel align buyers into calls and automate follow-up without chasing. With no hacks, no gimmicks, and no post-mortem advice, this is all leverage. And why does all this actually work, guys? Because most consultants try to scale effort. This scales certainty. So we're always creating conviction and certainty with all our prospects and buyers. Because when the system explains for you, your energy becomes irrelevant. And that's when income stops swinging. Because this system doesn't convince people. It removes doubt. And when doubt is gone, all decisions don't feel risky and they all feel obvious. And this is why authority beats persuasion every single time. And why does this sell feels different? You know what's missing? No pressure, no hype, and no convincing. So the whole call becomes, based on what you already understand, here's what makes sense next. Again, that's not selling, that's placement. Bam, bam, happy face. Because publishers don't chase attention, they install systems that shape decisions. They don't need more calls, they don't need louder content, and they don't need harder closes. They need infrastructure that compounds. And let me remind you, this system doesn't make you louder, it makes you inevitable. And inevitable business don't feel busy, they feel calm, cool, and collected. So if you want to install the system in your business and stop relying on referrals, content grind, and cold outreach, go and book a free one-on-one call on the link below, and we'll map out your authority asset, funnel, and automation. This is how B2B consulting compounds. Alright, I'll see you in the next video. Jeremy out.